So welcome back, everyone. We're live on Facebook, so hi to everybody out there. My next guest has been on with me also for years. I have with me Gil Hacohen. He's the owner of Lawyers4Less. I want you to tell everybody first a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why you created your firm the way you have.
Thanks, Carol. And first, let me say hi. Nice to be here.
And
Great
Happy
to see
New
you.
Year
Happy
to you.
New Year. Yes, 2026, brand new year.
Crazy.
Same old us, right? I created the firm to basically give the everyday person out there an opportunity to get legal representation. You know, so often if you need an attorney, you're kind of, and you're a normal Joe or Jane, you're kind of stuck between these two worlds, meaning if you make a very low income, there's services provided to you where you can get a public defender or some community legal aid to assist you with your legal matters. And if you make a whole bunch of money, well, then it doesn't matter. You can go and spend $500-600 an hour on an attorney. But the most of us who make $60, $70, $80, $90,000 a year, we're kind of stuck in limbo. You can't afford. You make too much money for the community legal aid, and you can't afford the $600 an hour. So how do you get quality legal representation? And that was the impetus between me starting the firm. I wanted to serve that demographic.
And you do. You also, I'm going to tell a little bit about you. First of all, you do free consultations. You're rated with the Better Business Bureau. You're valley-wide. And I'm going to tell everybody to put this number in your phone because, number one, we never know when something's going to happen. We're going to talk a little bit about personal injury and mainly car accidents, but I'm going to talk about some other ones as
Sure.
well because it's not always just a car accident.
It's not.
But you also know, we never know when something's going to happen to us. But you cover all sorts of different areas of law. So if you're in this situation or you know someone, please write this number down or put it in your phone at 602-800-5762. The website is lawyers4less.com. Okay, let's just get out the accidents first, the car accidents, because everybody thinks about that.
Yeah.
What are the steps that people should take when, let's say, they get into a car accident?
Sure. Phoenix is one of the highest per capita car accident cities in the country. And so it's no surprise it's also one of the highest per capita attorneys in the country. There's lots of attorneys out here dealing with car accidents. I'm not going to name names, but you've seen them on the billboards, and you basically can't swing a cat around without hitting an attorney that handles car accidents because there's a lot of them out here. And essentially the first thing you should do when you get in a car accident is pull over, make sure you're safe, and get out of the car and exchange information with the other party. Well, let me backtrack. If you're injured, you should call an ambulance. You should call 911 before you do anything else. But assuming that you're okay to get out of the car, you get out of the car, you exchange information, you should still call 911 or the non-emergency number to get a police out there, an officer out there so that they can write a report. A lot of arguments that happen later in litigation regarding car accidents are because, you say one thing and the other party says another thing. And so what you want is documentation of exactly what happened, and the police report does that. The other thing you should do is take pictures of your car, the other car, the other person's insurance information, their driver's license. You want as much documentation and evidence as possible, because I can't tell you the amount of times where people write things down or put it in their phone and then they lose it and they don't have that information, and then it becomes much more difficult, if at all possible, to help them when they don't have that information. So you want to make sure you document everything as much as possible. Contact law enforcement, even if you don't feel that you were injured, so that they can come out there and take a report. And certainly if you are injured, you want to get an ambulance out there and potentially paramedics and go to the hospital if necessary.
God forbid.
Yeah. After all that's done, you want to contact an attorney, okay? Because assuming that you have insurance and the other party has insurance, it's the insurance's responsibility to compensate you both for your loss and for the damage to your property and your bodily injuries, any injuries that you suffered as a result of the accident. And guess what? The insurance company wants to pay you as little money as possible, right? That's how they stay in business, by paying you as little money as possible. So what you want to do is call an attorney, so that they can talk to the insurance company on your behalf. This happens a lot also. You talk to the insurance company, the other side's insurance company or your insurance company. Those calls are all recorded, and anything you say later, well, kind of like law enforcement can and will be used against you. So if you say, no, I'm feeling fine, guess what? If you try to recover later, well, they'll bring up that recording and say, well, you were feeling fine after the accident. The thing is, when you get in an accident, you're juiced up on adrenaline, and you might not be feeling the injuries that you've actually suffered. Those injuries, it's not uncommon to manifest 2-3 days later, and all of a sudden you're hurt, but you're stuck with this statement that you gave the insurance company on the day of where you were feeling fine. So you don't want to talk to the insurance company. You want to call an attorney such as myself and let us talk to the insurance company for you.
His phone number to call is 602-800-5762. It's lawyers, the number 4less.com. I have a question, because there's car accidents and then there's car accidents, right? What is the, some people have just a little fender bender,
Sure.
right? But some people, I think that, like you said before, you don't know what the damage to yourself is, because it could come a few days later, but that might be where there's not necessarily, obviously, someone who's incredibly injured.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the area where you come in and you can take that case?
Yeah, so most car accidents, luckily, they consist of what's called soft tissue injuries, right? You hurt your back, you hurt your neck. You still need treatment for that, whether it's a chiropractor, a physical therapist, whatever it is, and we help you both obtain that treatment and make sure that you get all the treatment that you deserve. A lot of times people are worried, they're like, well, I can't afford a doctor, I don't want to, use my insurance, I haven't met my deductible. Well, we help you get the treatment that you need with no cost out of your pocket. And whether you suffered a serious injury, a broken bone, or whether you suffered a soft tissue injury, you still deserve treatment. And you still deserve compensation, both for the pain, the suffering, any lost wages. If you've got to go to the doctor and you weren't able to go to work that day, you deserve to be compensated for that, and that's where we help you. So whether it's a small injury from a fender bender, or whether it's a significant serious injury, we can help you all across the board.
That number again is 602-800-5762. Put the number in your phone so you have it under attorney Lawyers4Less, and he did it so that the everyday Joe or Jane can afford legal representation that is good quality legal representation.
Absolutely.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, so there's a big thing going on in the law right now where the Arizona State Bar allowed what's called paraprofessionals. So you can be a paralegal and help people out. And I come across that all the time where people call me and they said, well, I had the paralegal draft the documents for me, and now I'm in trouble because I can't do this, or this didn't happen, or the court rejected it. And so you want to make sure, if you have a legal issue, that you have a licensed, certified attorney handling your matter, because sometimes you save $1 and it ends up costing you $10, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to pinch pennies when it's your future on the line.
No, and on top of that, money is money. We have to understand that too. And a lot of times people don't understand. They try and do it on their own. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think I could rewire my entire house on my own, right? I could do it, but would the lights turn on when I flip the switch? Probably not, because I'm not an electrician. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So when you have a legal matter, you could probably do it on your own if you have the time, the dedication, the wherewithal, and the know-how to do it. But usually it leads to errors and mistakes that ends up costing you more money later down the line.
Put the number in your phone. It's 602-800-5762. He's rated with the Better Business Bureau. He's valley-wide. They do all sorts of law, not just PI, but we're kind of focusing on that today. But so you can call and find out if you've got any issues, whether it's a family matter, it could be civil, it could be criminal, right?
Yeah, we handle all sorts of legal issues. We're talking about PI today, but if you have a family law issue, a criminal defense issue, you need an estate plan, we also help with that as well.
And he's made it affordable for the everyday Joe or Jane to be able to afford quality representation. Again, that number to call is 602-800-5762. You can check him out on his website, which is lawyers4less.com. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk further about this, but also there's other things that come up in PI that have nothing to do with a car accident.
Absolutely.
And these are things that you cover as well. Again, put the number in your phone. It may be you or someone that you know, 602-800-5762. It's lawyers4less.com.
Great. Yeah.
So you were on fire.
Yeah, we did good.
Yeah. So, did you say power professionals or did you say
Paraprofessionals.
paraprofessionals?
Paraprofessionals. So they're basically paralegals that are licensed to appear in court and draft documents and do things like that. So, yeah, I don't know why the state bar did that, but they did that. So
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a little
Especially
crazy.
for what you guys do. I mean, that's what you all became an attorney for.
That's
is
why we
to
went
be
to
able
school and
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you talked about treatment after a car accident. Did you kind of already go over that?
You know, I didn't. I kind of
Do you want to talk
generalized.
about? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, let's say, like you said, you said anybody, even if it's soft tissue,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But sometimes there are people out there that have even gotten into a major car accident. I don't know why, but they think, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to sue anyone. I'm not that kind of person
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
right.
What are your thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, that's absolutely true, and usually you notice that in older people, they don't want to sue, but you're not. One thing to understand is you're not suing the person that hit you, right? You're suing the insurance company, and that's a very big difference, right?
Right.
The reason we have insurance is exactly for that purpose, to protect the individuals that are in a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have insurance. And one thing that's very important, I definitely want to mention that, is what's called uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. Okay, that's an extra rider that you have to pay for on a monthly basis. But the policy limits here in Arizona are so low. They're what's called 2550, right? Most people have minimum policy limits. So your max payout on a car accident is $25,000. But if you have a serious car accident and you have $100,000 medical bills, you want to be able to tap into additional money, and that's where your own policy comes in if you have the extra riders, uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage.
Yeah.
And I recommend that for everybody.
And not everybody does it because they don't think they can afford it.
They don't think
but
they can afford
really
it.
should have it.
And guess what? And then they get in a car accident. And I have a case like that right now. The guy was in a medically induced coma. He was in the hospital for a month. He's got $1 million worth of medical bills. The person that hit him has a 2550 policy. That's it. That's all he's getting. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks.
It's crazy.
Mhm.
Wow.
So yeah, we should definitely talk about that. Some other PI areas, slip and falls.
Mhm.
That's called premises liabilities. If you're in a Walmart and you slip and fall on a piece of strawberry, that's Walmart's fault.
Mhm.
Dog bites.
Okay.
And then, even if a motorcycle accident, it's not a car accident, but it's, still a type of accident.
Yeah. I was gonna say, there are many things. I mean, there's, today, firearm, getting,
Yeah, sure.
does that go under PI?
Yeah, if you were, absolutely.
So welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Gil Hacohen. He's the owner of Lawyers4Less, and he has made it affordable for the everyday Joe or Jane to be able to afford quality legal representation.
That's
And
right.
we were talking just before the break about how you cover all sorts of areas of law. Today we're focusing a little bit on PI, and a lot of people get in accidents here, but we also were talking a little bit about how there's so many different other things other than car accidents, but we're gonna finish on something that's important, which to you said you wanna talk to people about getting covered correctly.
Yes.
Right, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so a typical insurance policy will have what's called policy limits. In Arizona, the minimum liability policy limits are what's called $25,000 per person or $50,000 per accident. That's the cap in the monetary compensation. So if there were multiple people involved in your accident, for instance, you were driving and you had your wife and 3 kids, or husband and niece and nephew or whoever, $50,000 has to be split between everybody. And if you get in a serious accident, that's a very low amount to split between everybody. Same if it's just you and you get in a serious accident, $25,000, that's the maximum that you can recover, and that's a very low amount if you get in a serious accident. And so what insurance companies offer is an additional rider, an additional coverage on your policy. It costs extra, but it's well worth it. It's called either underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage. Uninsured is exactly what it sounds like. If somebody hits you and they don't have insurance, then you can tap your own policy for your uninsured motorist coverage. Underinsured also is what it sounds like. If you get in a serious accident and the other party does not have enough coverage to cover you for your medical bills and pain and suffering, you can then tap your own coverage for underinsured policy limits. And these cost a little bit more per month, but again, very well worth it. There's a very high amount of people out here that don't have any insurance coverage, and then you're stuck, because if they don't have coverage and you don't have uninsured coverage, then you're on the hook for all the medical expenses and everything else that comes along with your accident. Same with underinsured. I was telling you a story about a client I have now. He was in a very serious car accident. He was in a medically induced coma for a month in the hospital, and he did not have underinsured coverage. The other party that hit him was at fault, and their policy limits were the minimum policy limits, $25.50. So his max coverage is $25,000 that then needs to be paid to the hospital, all of his medical providers, and he's probably going to end up with nothing or very little because there's just not enough.
How much do you think it costs to be in a hospital?
I mean, I can tell you it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's very well worth it to have that additional coverage to make sure that you're covered and your family's covered in the event of an accident. Nobody thinks they're getting in an accident, right? That's why people don't get insurance and don't get proper coverage. But unfortunately, that's why they're called accidents, because they happen, and they can happen to me, and they can happen to you, and they can happen to everybody around you. And so it's important to be covered in the event that happens.
His number is 602-800-5762. It's lawyers, the number 4less.com. You do free consultations. You're rated with the Better Business Bureau. You're also valley-wide. Before we go to the next group of type of personal injury, you wanted to also talk a little bit about how there are certain people out there that don't feel like they really want to sue that person,
Right, absolutely. It's very natural. You were hurt in an accident, but you feel bad. Maybe the other person was hurt, or you were raised to suck it up and you don't sue people. The thing that's important to understand is that you're not suing the person that actually hit you. You're suing the insurance company, right? That's why people have insurance. They have insurance to protect themselves and others in case of an accident. That's why it's required by law. You have to have insurance legally in case you're in an accident. And so there's absolutely no reason to feel bad. If you were injured in an accident, you are entitled to compensation both for your property damage and for the pain, suffering, inconvenience, lost wages that you suffered as a result of the accident. Most accident cases, you don't even have to sue. They get settled prior to a lawsuit ever being filed. But in the event that it can't get settled, then your recourse is a lawsuit, and that's your right, and you should exercise your rights.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other different types of personal injury. One, a lot of people may know, slip and fall.
Slip and falls, it falls under what's called premises liability. So the owner of a premises has the obligation to keep that premises safe from unnatural causes for accidents. So I'll give you an example. If you're at Walmart and you're in the shampoo aisle and there's a piece of strawberry on the floor and you slip on that piece of strawberry, that's Walmart's fault. Walmart sells strawberries, and it's their responsibility to make sure there's no produce lying on the floor, nothing that can cause an accident. And so that's called premises liability, and if you suffered a slip and fall at a premises, then you're entitled to compensation for your damages.
Now, dog bites.
Dog bites, another big issue here in Arizona. A lot of people have dogs. I have several dogs myself, and you're responsible to keep that dog on a leash. And if you didn't keep that dog on a leash and that dog went out and bit somebody, then that is your responsibility. And if you were bit by a dog, then that is that other person's responsibility. And dog bites can cause very serious injuries and long-term injuries, by the way, as a result of a dog bite, that again, you're entitled to be compensated for, and you know, that oftentimes falls under various different types of insurance policies, right? Your home insurance policy and other policies that will cover a dog bite.
Now, this one is an interesting one, but it also comes up and falls under personal injury, and that is firearms.
Yeah, firearms, luckily, you know, you don't see, or I haven't seen many of these, but certainly they're out there. If you were injured as a result of somebody firing their firearm, then that person has liability for you. Firearms are very regulated, very restricted. Nobody should be shooting off their firearms outside of a safe environment, a gun range, but sometimes people do. Certainly around holidays, 4th of July, New Year's, people like to shoot their firearms in the air, and that results in injuries. That's when you see the biggest uptick in these firearm injuries. And if that happens, then you're entitled to a compensation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of attorney that you would call. Now, here's what I want to ask you too. When should someone call you? Because sometimes people wait, I don't know, they might think about it a little bit.
Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to call an attorney as soon as possible, okay? Because first of all, I can point you in the right direction on how you should, again, get treated and how you should handle this accident. Even if you don't end up hiring me, as Carol mentioned, I offer free consultations, and I can offer you the advice on how you should handle and how you should proceed forward. Oftentimes, insurance company will try to deny coverage based on what's called a gap in care. So if you were in an accident, we'll just say a car accident for a minute, and you didn't get treatment within a certain amount of time, well, the insurance company is going to turn around and say, well, you weren't injured because of the car accident, you were injured for anything else. You might have been gardening in your garden and you were injured for that, right? So you need to be able to show what's called causation, that your injury resulted from that car accident, and it's important to get treatment for that as soon as possible. And oftentimes people will hem and haw and not know where to go and not know where to get treatment for a variety of reasons, and so it's important to call an attorney like myself to get the advice, to be able to make sure that the insurance company can't later deny your claim.
His number to call is 602-800-5762. His website is lawyers4less.com. And a lot of people, they'll say, oh, I'm fine. And they're really not.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, you're jacked up on adrenaline immediately after an accident. You might feel fine, but the truth is you might not be fine. So it's important to get treatment, whether it's at the hospital or somewhere else, to make sure that you are fine. A lot of times, especially with soft tissue injuries, they're inside your body, and you can't tell. Maybe your neck is sore, but that might be a predicate to a much more serious injury, and you might need an MRI to actually figure that out. So it's important to do everything you need to do to make sure the extent of your injuries, not just that you're sore, but the extent of your injuries.
Now, before we go, I just want you to also remind them of some of the different other areas of law that you do cover.
Yeah, our firm covers a lot of different areas of law. We cover family law, criminal defense, estate planning, and one thing I did want to mention very quickly before we go, because there's a lot of options here for lawyers. Again, you drive down the highway, you see a million people on the billboard, but there's a big difference between my firm and these big billboard firms, right? And what you see with these big billboard firms is that you're just a case file on somebody's desk. You barely ever speak to an attorney. You maybe speak to a paralegal, but usually just a case manager. With my firm, you always speak to an attorney. You always get personalized service, which means that you end up getting better advice and better results at the end.
You don't want to be a big number. That's all you are in some of those other cases. The people that you see on the billboard, gives you personal service. That's really big. Again, that phone number to call him direct at 602-800-5762. He's rated with the Better Business Bureau. He does free consultations. He's valley-wide. Check him out on his website. It's lawyers4less.com.
Thank you, Carol.